going on, friends? When it comes to cam swaps on your Harley-Davidson, one question that constantly comes up is, do I need to change out my lifters with the new camshaft? Now, there's two schools of thought to this. I can see both sides of it. On one side of it, new parts wear out old. On the other side of it, if they're in good condition, everything looks good with them, just go ahead and leave them, run them with the new camshaft. But there are a lot of good arguments on both sides, and honestly, what I like to do, I always like to change out the lifters when I'm putting in a new cam. What you gotta remember is that factory Harley-Davidson lifters, they're not bad parts, but they are really designed to work with the mild factory camshafts that come stock in your Harley-Davidson. And in a lot of cases, they still work really well with the Screaming Eagle camshafts. But you gotta remember, even the Screaming Eagle camshafts, these are pretty mild by comparison to a lot of aftermarket cams. And aftermarket cams are where the power's at, and that's what most people want to swap to. Now, aftermarket cams with more lift and duration, these do put a lot more up and down force and stress on the lifters. Not to mention, aftermarket cams having those higher lifts, they also tend to try to twist those lifters in their bores. So that's definitely something you want to be aware of. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you that it is not absolutely necessary to change your lifters out when you're installing a new camshaft. In my opinion, it's really just good practice. But you definitely want to inspect your old lifters, look for any abnormal signs of wear, make sure the rollers are good in them, and just make sure, also check your stock cam. Make sure you don't have any abnormal wear on that either. The last thing you want to do is go back with a lifter that's getting ready to go out and put a fresh cam in it. Now, while it may not be absolutely necessary to change the lifters, it could definitely save you a lot of time, money, and headaches later on down the road. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, while most bolt-in aftermarket cams, these for all intents and purposes, they bolt in with all the necessary clearances, and they do work well and play nicely with your stock valve train, including your lifters, your rocker arms, your valve springs. You really don't have to do anything else other than put the cam in and get the bike properly tuned. But as I mentioned, these higher lift cams, they do put more stress and force on those factory lifters. Now, don't get me wrong, there has been tons of bolt-in cam swaps done out there utilizing the factory lifters. They've lasted for years. They've run year after year over so many miles without any issue whatsoever. But on the other hand, there have been some failures that have occurred running the factory lifters. Now, the first thing you want to consider before you go back with your original lifters and not changing them out and reusing them with a brand new camshaft is you definitely want to look at that contact point on the lifter and on the cam lobes. If you see any kind of abnormal wear, any kind of scarring on there, definitely do not reuse that lifter on your new cam. Because in my mind, that lifter roller has already been worn into the old cam's profile, and putting that on the new cam, that's not necessarily going to be a good thing in time. Another thing you really want to take into consideration is the mileage on your old lifters. If I had to throw a number out there, I would honestly say, for me personally, I would be willing to go 10,000 miles and we're using a lifter, pending that the rollers and the contact patch area all look good. I would feel somewhat comfortable going ahead and reusing the factory lifters on an aftermarket camshaft at that point if you're at or below 10,000 miles. Now, the absolute last thing that you want to do is just blindly swap your cam out, not inspect those original lifters, and then basically have a lifter failure and have it wipe a cam lobe right off your brand new set of cams in your bike. That reason right there is exactly why, even though these stock lifters look good, they appear to be in good condition, I still like to change them out. That is just cheap insurance. No, I wouldn't consider a new set of lifters very cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than having to go back, rebuy the camshaft, and go through the whole process all over again, and hopefully you didn't cause any more damage in the process from metal coming apart inside the engine. So yes, honestly, a new set of lifters, a higher quality aftermarket lifter, these can run anywhere from $150 to upwards of $400 a set. That is cheap insurance, all things considered, with what could go wrong just from one lifter failure. Yes, I know, that adds more money into the project just on a cam swap. A lot of people will get it in their head that, hey, I just want to go in, swap the cam, do basically nothing more than new gaskets and an oil change, and go on down the road. Can it be done? Absolutely. Has it been done without a failure? Absolutely. But what you have to decide, is that worth the risk? Do I want to risk all that money versus going ahead and spending an extra $200 or $300, putting a new set of lifters in there and not having to worry about it? Aftermarket lifters are going to be exponentially better than your factory lifters. They're going to have stronger needle bearings, more of them at that, better oiling properties, not to mention you don't have to spend a ton of money to get a good set of aftermarket lifters. There are plenty of options from S&S, gyms, and fueling, just to name a few, that are right at about $200. And as I mentioned, you can go anywhere from $300 to $400 if you want to get serious and go with a high quality set of race lifters. Now, the main thing when it comes to aftermarket lifters that they have over the stock lifters is they generally have better anti-twisting properties about them. They have better pins in there, they have better contact surfaces with those anti-rotation pins in your lifter blocks, because as I mentioned, when it comes to high lift aftermarket cams, even the bolt-in ones, that higher lift cam lobe tries to force that lifter to turn inside that bore. That can cause you a lot of problems down the road, especially when it comes to stock lifters. We already somewhat have this issue even with the factory cams, but you're going to make that even worse if you go with a higher lift, more aggressive aftermarket camshaft. The later engines are not like the old Evo. You wear out a set of lifter blocks, that wasn't a huge deal on the Evo. You could just replace the lifter blocks with new lifter bores in them. The new engines, well, new, twin cam, and the Milwaukee 8, the lifter bores are actually cast into the engine cases themselves. So that creates an issue. If you have that twisting force and motion going in there, you're actually wearing on that lifter bore. And when you wear that lifter bore out over time, your only option is a new set of lifters. Once again, there's that new set of lifters, but you have to look at getting an oversized set of lifters to where it's not flopping around in there. And if you lose that clearance, those tolerances in there, you can bet your bottom dollar that that lifter is going to be rotating in there, and if it rotates, you're going to wipe a lobe off the cam, and you better hope that you don't take out the valve train with it. Now, speaking of rotating lifters, I hate to do this to you Milwaukee 8 guys. I know you guys are already dealing with enough issues when it comes to sumping and some of the other weird little variables with the Milwaukee 8, but Harley-Davidson, in their infinite wisdom, on 2017 and later Milwaukee 8, so it's all of them, they actually use plastic lifter cuffs. The lifter cuff is basically what keeps the lifter from rotating. And with Harley-Davidson using plastic, they're perfectly fine with the stock cam in there. But if you go and put in an aftermarket high lift cam, you can bet your bottom dollar that your lifters are going to start rotating around in there. And when they rotate around in there, they start to wear, they start to make noise, then you've got an issue. But fortunately, when it comes to the Milwaukee 8, there is somewhat of an inexpensive fix for this. And if you're already doing a cam swap, this is something that I would highly recommend doing, going out to S&S and getting some of their metal lifter cuffs. This will replace those plastic cuffs in there. These will actually hold your lifters in place, so even with the high lift cam, that metal cuff is not going to bend and flex and give way like the plastic factory one does. It's going to keep your lifter straight in the bore, and it's going to eliminate you a major failure down the road, all for roughly about $75. So yes, I understand that changing lifters out with your cam swap, it does get expensive. There is nothing cheap about upgrading a Harley-Davidson. Yes, we could buy an aftermarket cam, we could do the absolute bare minimum, and it might be fine. But what if it's not? What I really want you to consider before you do the bare minimum on a cam swap, and I'm not even talking about getting into a cam plate or an oil pump. To me, honestly, that would be secondary compared to putting in a different set of lifters while you're already in there, unless there is a problem. Definitely if there's a problem, stop right there, go back with the correct parts, because the last thing you want to do is put a questionable part back together with a brand new camshaft. Considering the cost of new lifters anywhere from $200 to maybe $300-400, that is a lot cheaper than having to rebuy a cam that's anywhere from $300 to $500, not to mention gaskets, oil, anything else you tear up, plus a new set of lifters, and don't even get me started if you have to go back and pay for the labor again to have it torn down, gone back through, re-diagnosed as to what went wrong, because at this point they're going to be searching through the engine trying to find any other little pieces of metal, and if even then, hopefully it didn't run through the motor and trash other components. So whether you want to do the bare minimum on that cam swap or not, that is totally up to you. To me, in my mind, it's not worth risking something as little as $200 when it comes to putting that kind of money and time into your motorcycle. Not even to mention the downtime that you're going to have. you may not even be able to get in anywhere, especially if it happens during the middle of riding season. You could miss out on half or all of your season just trying to get your motorcycle done. So guys, let me know in the comments, what are your opinions on this? Do you like to change the lifters out with a brand new cam? Or do you just put the old lifters in and go ahead and send it, go on down the road and don't even worry about it? You know my opinion, but now guys, I want to hear yours in the comments. But anyhow guys, that's all I've got for you this week. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But till next week guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.